Just walking down here into my Masri arcade or my nerd cave. I actually haven't really been home too much, so I've been kind of actually looking forward to doing a whole lot of nothing this weekend. But every single Saturday, I go to sparring. So I meet with a group of guys, 6 a.m., and each of these guys, they all have different skill levels, different abilities. And one of the cool things is a lot of these guys that I spar with, they sparred with me when I was pretty much green and didn't know what I was doing, up to a point where I started getting pretty comfortable and getting okay at what I was doing. And one of the things that I've realized in boxing that parallels so closely to sales is that you can never truly be comfortable. And me personally, I'm the type of guy that I like to build my skill set and get so good that I feel comfortable in everything I do. And I always kind of realize and always shortchange myself sometimes in realizing that I can't really ever get there. And that's kind of what made me really good at sales. And boxing is no different. So I actually injured my heel about a month ago. And I ended up like tearing a muscle in there, I believe. It's been in a lot of pain. I can't jump and I can't run. I can still do boxing, but I can't do those aspects of the training that I was normally doing. So what this meant is I've basically had a month now of no skipping and no running. And those are two things that I was incorporating heavily into my boxing routine. And I kind of came to a realization today, and I was kind of feeling it weeks before, but I really felt it today where certain guys that I would argue are probably faster than me, but there were guys that I could keep up with. I felt like today I just couldn't keep up. I felt like today that I was in my element in some ways, but when it came to actually having to do some heavy lifting in the ring, I couldn't do it. And it's not like my gas tank's ever been super great in boxing, but this was a circumstance where it just clicked in my brain that I need to do something to get my cardio back up, or else I'm not going to be able to perform the way that I want to next weekend and the weekend after that. And then I've really taken up using the assault bike, and that's going to be my next obsession now for the next little while. But I bring this up because in sales, this is something that I see happen all the time. And what I end up seeing is that sales reps might get comfortable with certain aspects, but that comfort level in some ways ends up becoming their crutch. So whether it's that they're really good at talking to the customer, that becomes their crutch. But that crutch ignores the other things that are so paramount and so important. And what I mean by that is I have some sales guys who are incredibly good at building rapport with the customer, but they don't know how to convey the value of their product. They don't know how to properly pitch. They don't know how to ask for the business. And that's what ends up killing them. And you have to understand from my perspective, of course I know that cardio in boxing is important. I get that. I did injure myself. However, I didn't realize how big of a deal and how much it was setting me back after really only having been practicing bag work, drills, and light sparring and hard sparring through this past month or so. But removing all of the cardio and all that aspect to it really hurt me. And my crutch was my power. My crutch was basically the things that I did know. But ultimately, when I was not able to put those things together with a good base or a good cardio or a good foundation behind that, I put myself into a position where I got fucked up, and I've been getting fucked up. It happens. But the thing is, this is the same thing that happens to a lot of salespeople. They end up focusing on the wrong things, relying on the wrong things, when ultimately sometimes they have to focus on other things. Maybe the other things they have to focus on aren't conveying value. Maybe it is building rapport with that customer. Maybe that's their assault bike that they need to hop on. Ultimately, I bring this up, and this is just more personal for me because I had the same pitfalls in sales. I remember when I understood how to properly ask for the business from a customer, I started to get really weak at everything else, because to me that was like my right hook or my two, and it was like a really developed two at that point. And so I ignored all the other things that made the two impactful, like using my jab or doubling up my jab to help close that distance and actually land that two. And closing in sales for me I realized I have to work on my jab before I can land that two, the two being the close. And I came to this realization. It was almost like a light bulb moment. I'd kind of been feeling it, but I really realized it today where I felt like I was keeping up in sparring for the first, like, let's say, round. But after I got it a couple rounds in, I was gassed. And the things that I wanted to do, or the aggressive approach that I take in some cases, even if I wanted to do it, I didn't have the foundation to be able to do it. And that's a pitfall that happens so often in sales, where guys have very good approaches or very good aspects to their salesmanship, but because they're not training the right things, it ultimately kills them in the end.